plan of action. First thing about that is, as we're going through this workshop, I'd like for you to be thinking about what are the different ways that you could apply what you're going to be picking up in. And there will be a lot of different ways. At the end of the day, tomorrow we'll ask you to establish that goal. What's the one way that I'd like to apply it? And then utilize your resources. About a month from now, you'll be hearing from us saying, all right, you set this goal for yourself in the workshop. How are things going? How can we help? Coaching, advice, anything like that? And we'll be there with that. Once you've actually completed that plan of action, with our help or on your own, we just encourage you to communicate your success back to us. How has it impacted you in a positive way? Either what sort of change has it brought about in the organization, or specifically financial impact. I had a recent client that was able to use one of these tools to find $400,000 worth of savings in their organization. Huge deal. Another that used a combination of different tools and techniques in order to roll out a product 11 months ahead of schedule. And they anticipate that that'll generate another $10 million worth of incremental revenue. So it's just a matter of using these tools to focus on business issues. Using an approach that's fair and accurate, meaning we're not going to get caught up in the emotions of things, but rather we're going to be fair, evaluating multiple perspectives. We're not going to get locked into one way of thinking. And focusing on information that is relevant. And I want to be real clear about how we're going to define strategic thinking. So what is strategic thinking? Here's our is not definition. It is thinking comprehensively about a complex situation. What it is not, at least for the purposes of this workshop, so just to narrow our focus, it's not about developing a strategy. That's another workshop that could take days on end. How do we develop either a business strategy, organizational strategy? And we have some things in your materials about some of the basics of that, from developing a SWOT analysis to maybe doing a Porter's 5 Forces analysis on the market to say, should we roll out a product in this market or not? There's some things in your materials about that, but that's less of our concern at this point. Instead, we want to make sure that we're addressing situations that are really ugly in a way that makes sense. Where there's not a single lever we can pull to fix this situation, but there's all sorts of alternatives. So, the example we'll give, take a look, the case of the costly problem. So you're a national retail chain, your overhead costs are increasing, competitors are siphoning off your customers, inventory's languishing, tying up capital, wages are quite high, especially with your experienced salespeople. What do you do to remedy the problem? We have to look at the relevance, the clarity, the accuracy of these reasons plus assumptions. Fairness, credibility, consistency, logic, all that. The most recent version of the Watson-Glaser, the Watson-Glaser 2, has broken critical thinking down into 3 different areas. First, what's your ability to recognize assumptions? Meaning, what assumptions are we making? We're going to look at a case here in a moment that really gets down to what are assumptions and how do we define them? And also your ability to evaluate arguments, being how can I look at the information that's presented to me and determine whether or not the reasons presented are valid reasons? And if not, why are they not valid? And then finally, what's your ability to draw an effective conclusion based on the information that's presented? Either using deductive reasoning or inference to identify what's the best way to proceed.
It was a little bit difficult to be able to hone in on exactly what the problem that we perceived the problem to be. We had a myriad of problem statements, and so we had a little bit of difficulty in trying to hone it in and be able to focus our 45 minutes on that. But once we were able to do that, there were a ton of ideas that really came out. So very creative group.
And it's good that you point out the frustration that came out of that, because that's something, you probably heard the term pre-calling, that you can use in conversations to say, all right, I'm going to say something, and you're likely going to feel like this. What I'd like for your response to be is this, and just to set up conversations like that. But this is an activity that might require some pre-calling to say, listen, we're going to do some idea generation here, and it's going to be different than how you've done it before, and you're going to feel frustrated. Know that that's normal. I want you to hang in that frustration a while we get a good, solid definition of this problem. Your ideas aren't going to go unnoticed. If you come up with something, write it down so we don't lose it. But look, we're going to stay in this analysis phase first, and just let people know what to expect. Otherwise, they're going to be just, what the heck, this isn't working like brainstorming's supposed to work.
How do you guess going back, because we had a similar issue. How do you know you've identified the right problem? I mean, that's a loaded question probably, but I thought the problem was this, and then Pete, restated it into something different. And in my head, I'm going, wait, is that the problem or is this the problem? And I wasn't sure.
Right. Right. So there are a lot of different issues. The question is, do we have something that can be as definitive as like a deviation analysis? Not so much, but it's going to be more of almost the 1 to 10 kind of prioritization. The important part of the exercise that you're going through is the reframing, though, is to keep exploring different frames and say, wait a minute, is it really a problem with engaging the employees? Or, all right, how about this? What if we assume that the program, this credit card program we have, is bad to begin with? Do we even need this as a product? Throw that out there and explore that frame. And then eventually, the more you do that, throw out outlandish problem statements, not only the outlandish ideas, is that you start to just expand your frame of reference, and the more diverse perspectives you get, and the more likely you are to uncover and say, you know what, that's our real issue there. Let's say you're all in a brainstorming session and say, okay, take 5 minutes, each of you individually, silently write down 10 ideas. And then we go around round robin and say, okay, Bonnie, what's the first idea on your list? Great. Felix, what's your first one? Scott, what's your first one? If new ideas come up, if Scott's idea spurs one for you, Bonnie, you add it to your list and we kind of go around round robin. You can also do that from a framing standpoint of write down what you think 5 problem statements are, and you're more likely to get a broader frame of reference that then hopefully will lead you to the right problem.